If you could pick any heavyweight champion in history, who do you think would have given you the toughest fight of them?
The toughest fight would be the man who's the hardest to knock out, whether he's got a style. And a fellow who had no style, just a bull, was Rocky Marciano.
Rocky Marciano was 25 by the time Charlie Goldman got his first look at him. He was fresh out of the Army and determined to make it as an athlete in something. Goldman judged a book by its cover and cringed at what he saw. He started too late. He was too slow. He was short, and despite just how short he was, his arms were still considered T-Rex in comparison. Worst of all, he was about 15 pounds too big for light heavyweight. So this 5'10", 190-pound man would have to fight the giants. Charlie taught Rocky to fight out of a crouch, so Rocky could get underneath his taller opponents and rip away at their soft underbelly. Use the top of his head and shoulders to straighten a taller man up and take away their leverage. He taught Rocky how to pressure without taking the full force of a punch, how to catch the jab and feint his way in, how to use the geometry of the ring to trap his opponents. But you cannot teach what made Rocky Marciano great. Those short arms were almost impossible to tie up. He was strong and squirmy and utterly tireless. His right hand was lovingly nicknamed Susie Q, for the same reason they nicknamed the first atom bombs. Rocky never needed more than 2 on target to end a fight. It was all a matter of getting there without getting blown up along the way. Rocky was gifted with an iron chin to go with his power, but Rocky's conditioning was his true armor. He would do 6-month training camps. He wore his stamina like steel plating. All the punches just seemed to slide off him. Those that did land solid couldn't stop him for long. The tiny tank just kept rolling forward, firing.
Rocky Marciano!
The first films of Rocky appear in the early 1950s. He was called a savage and a caveman, a crude slugger with big power, who fought like he had a knife to his back. For anybody particularly large and testing, Rocky had a body punch waiting. He racked up 34 wins with 30 knockouts when he got his big break. Coming in as a 2-1 underdog against Rex Lane.
Marciano working on Lane inside. Watch this left to the jaw by Marciano. This to Mr. Right will land a smashing left hook, followed by a right to the jaw. Marciano's left hook to the jaw forces Lane to the rope.
Rex was ripped to pieces, with Susie Q taking 2 of his teeth in the 6th round.
Watch. A good right to the body by Marciano. All of that weapon. Rocky jabs with his left, and here it comes.
It wasn't always fun fighting uphill, especially when you see a friend fall in front of you.
He's really out, and Rocky waves a right on high that did the job. He gets a congratulatory kiss.
Rocky's next fight was against a legend. Joe Louis started fighting in 1934. For 13 years, he proudly represented America with dignity as heavyweight champion. During World War II, Joe Louis was doing exhibitions to entertain the troops. He donated every penny to the war effort. Problem was, Joe donated the taxman's share too. Now broke and older than Methuselah, at least 137 years old, Joe Louis was on the comeback trail because he badly needed the money to pay the IRS. There was still some magic in those old gray fists of Joe Louis, but thrown in with prime Rocky Marciano, it could only end one way.
Rocky maneuvers Louis to the ropes and lands a right to the jaw in the opening seconds of round 1. Marciano, by far the lighter man, is pressuring Louis. Watch him and you'll see him pounding to Louis' body, pounding within professional fights. Marciano forces Lewis to the ropes. He fires to the body and gets in a left uppercut. And here he is, still bullying the ex-champion to the head. He's pressuring, gunning for a shot at the heavyweight title. Here comes a hard left by Marciano. Working on the body with his hands. You can see that Lewis feels those punches.
It was one of the saddest sights in all of boxing history.
Marciano goes to work on the body. Marciano gets 50,000.
Joe Louis beaten down and put through the ropes.
Again, Lewis is forced to the ropes. He fights his way off, but the end is near. Round. Here comes that big right we've seen Marciano using throughout the fight.
At the very least, it stopped Joe from ever thinking about stepping back through them.
Backs his man to the ropes to finish him off. Now watch. A left. Another left crumples Lewis. A blazing right. And Lewis sails through the ropes.
Rocky kept rolling through the top 8 like clickbait.
There it is. And down goes Matthews. Will he beat the count?
He finally got his crack at an unlikely champion. Jersey Joe Walcott aged like a fine wine. He struggled in his early career during the Great Depression, barely making enough to feed his family, much less himself. Once he started eating well, Joe underwent a late career renaissance. In his third meeting with Ezzard Charles, Joe Walcott posted the greatest long shot left hook KO of all time. Before silencing all the doubters with a victory in their fourth and final fight. Before Foreman, Joe Walcott was the oldest champion in history. It didn't take long for the old vet to trick the contender into walking into that very same hook that won him the title. The difference was Rocky didn't stay down. Rocky showed his conditioning. Chasing down a fleet-footed genius, throwing 100 punches around. While Joe would slip and roll away the first few shots, punches 5, 6, and 7 always seemed to land. Despite this, Joe was able to pull ahead with his veteran savvy. With Rocky down on all 3 cards, Sweet Susie Q bailed Rocky out and brought him home a champion. There has never, in all of heavyweight history, has been a less needed 10 count. Rocky gave Jersey Joe a rematch.
Are permitted. One minute to go in round 1.
a rematch that convinced Jersey Joe to hang up the gloves. Rocky defended his title against Roland La Starza, an upright counterpuncher who fought evenly with Rocky 3 years earlier. La Starza used his feet to keep out of the corners and catch Rocky coming in. Rocky did what Rocky always did: walk forward, winging both hands. Rocky was focused on Susie Q early, but when La Starza proved too crafty, he started trapping him by putting a left hook to the body behind it. As time wore on and his legs wore out, La Starza had nowhere to go but down. Rocky then took on ex-champion Ezzard Charles.
Excellent ringside view, showing Rocky in it so far. The previous round, some of his rights landed pretty hard. He just keeps pouring in. They don't call him the strong boy for nothing.
After that nasty KO by Joe Walcott, Ezzard went 11-4 and re-earned #1 contender status. Their first fight was a legendary war of attrition. Ezzard swept many of the early rounds with his accuracy and savvy. By the late rounds, Rocky's unreal conditioning saw him make his way back into the fight. As the bell rings, Ezzard is fighting for self-preservation. Rocky had gone 15 rounds and retained his championship in a classic. A rematch was given to Ezzard. This time around, Rocky picked up the pace early.
That's it. Back him up with the jab. Goes at it like he's working on a job. Another big shot. He's right up. He must go to the body. You're losing your head. He's got the left low. All right, then. Do anything.
Pouring it on Ezzard, who fought back bravely.
Let him relax. This guy has got to go. That's the KO. Keep punching. You got to get this one. The right should get him every time.
At the end of the 6th round, Marciano comes out of a clinch with his right nostril in shreds. His corner tried to bandage it between rounds, and Ezzard promptly punched it off.
But then they put enough gauze around my nose to bandage an army. Look at this. I look like Pinocchio.
Rocky knew he was on borrowed time. He turned up the pace to finally stretch out the Cincinnati Cobra.
Push him off. Shove the guy. Left, and he goes. I know it's over.
Rocky started breaking down. The endless 6-month training camps were taking their toll. His back was becoming an issue. Not that you could tell on fight night.
Way out. Get the boxing. Just walk out there and take a pot shot at this kid, and we'll get out of here. good right hand.
Rocky's pattern repeated against Don Cockell of England. Rocky warmed up slow enough.
Calm, collected. Great. I may never... There. He's given ground for the first time in the fight now. Take advantage of it.
But by the mid-rounds, he's throwing more punches per round than any heavyweight in history.
He stays on his feet. He'll start saying, I can't punch. I'm going after him, and I'm not gonna stop until the bell rings. Bang him. Don't stop. I already had the punch going, but I couldn't do anything about it.
The final fight of Rocky's career came against the all-time knockout king. Archie Moore knocked out over 130 people.
Just how do you think you're going to go on the night of the fight?
Well, as I always said, I believe that I'm going to win this fight.
Rocky's final effort in the ring might be his greatest. In the second round, Rocky walked right into the most proven puncher in history. And Rocky was up by the count of 2. As the round passed, it turned into the archetypical Marciano fight. A wild, savage war of attrition
Marciano is on his man like a tiger.
and condition. Archie got the worst of it. Knocked down time and again. The old mongoose went out like a champion. So did Rocky.
Rocky Marciano!
Rocky never fought again. He considered a comeback, but could never motivate himself back into his championship condition. He grew overweight and happy in his retirement. An undefeated champion loved by all. Rocky enjoyed his well-deserved rewards after a championship career. He died in a plane crash in 1969. The only reason he didn't get up from it, Rocky wasn't in camp. But even to this day, Rocky Marciano still stands in Brockton, a monument to work.